My name is Clarissa Morgan. I'm 63 years old. And 3 weeks ago, I buried my husband of 38 years, Edward. We built this house together, raised our children here, watched the seasons pass through the kitchen window, shared late-night talks in this living room, and planted roses in the backyard every spring. But on a quiet Tuesday morning, with the funeral flowers still wilting in their vases, the calls began. "Mom, we need to talk about the house," my son Brian said, not bothering with small talk. His voice was firm, familiar. The same tone he used when asking for money in college, only now he wasn't asking. He was telling. I stood in my kitchen, the coffee going cold in my mug, the one that says "World's Best Grandma," a gift from my granddaughter Catherine, but nothing felt familiar anymore. Not the mug, not my voice, not even my reflection in the hallway mirror. And when I finally understood what Brian and my daughter Danielle were planning behind my back, when I realized their kindness was just strategy, not love, something in me broke. Or maybe, for the first time, something in me finally woke up. This is not a story about revenge. It's about reclaiming your voice when everyone expects you to stay silent. About honoring the life you built, even if your own children no longer respect it. It's about what happened when my children tried to take my home, and what I did instead. The next morning, Brian called again. "Mom," he said, "Danielle and I had dinner last night. We talked about your situation. It's not sustainable. That house is too big for you. It's time to think about next steps." I held the phone against my ear and stared out the kitchen window, where the herb garden Edward and I once tended had grown wild. I hadn't touched it since the funeral. "There is no mortgage," I said flatly. A long pause. Then that dismissive laugh, sharp and cutting, the same one his father once used, though Edward had always used it with warmth. Brian's version held no affection. "Mom, you don't need to pretend. Dad's pension can't cover all your medications. We're worried." They weren't worried. They were circling. He launched into a pitch like it was a business deal. He and his wife wanted to buy a new place, a colonial on Maple Street. Danielle was struggling with Catherine's college fund. "If we sold your house," he said, "it would be a win-win." A win-win, for them. "And where would I go?" I asked. "That's the great part," he said brightly. "Danielle has that finished basement. You'd have your own entrance, your own bathroom. It's cozy. And..." He made it sound like an upgrade, not a demotion. "That basement floods every spring," I said quietly. "It's been fixed. And you'd have Catherine to keep you company when she's home from college. Maybe help with meals. You know how Danielle struggles with that." I didn't respond. Because I remembered Thanksgiving last year, how I was seated downstairs alone while the rest of the family dined upstairs. I remembered how Danielle didn't call after the funeral, not once. Brian continued, undeterred. "Lisa's cousin Gregory is a realtor. He has a cash buyer. Quick close. We could wrap this all up in a month. Start fresh." He said it like he was doing me a favor. Like erasing 3 decades of memories and marriage was just another line item on a checklist. "Mom," he said, "we're telling you this because we care." But what he really meant was, "We want your house, and we're not asking." That evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Danielle. "Mom, Brian told me about the house. I know it's hard, but it's for the best. Catherine's so excited to have Grandma living closer. Can't wait to talk details." Details, as if my grief had a project timeline. I stared at the screen, reading her words over and over. Catherine was excited. The same granddaughter who hadn't called or messaged me in months. Who used to spend summers baking cookies in my kitchen and planting tomatoes in the backyard, now silent since Christmas. I scrolled through our last messages. December 15th, a group text thanking everyone for holiday gifts. No personal note, no "How are you, Grandma?" No check-in after the funeral. If Catherine was excited, she hadn't told me. And Danielle? The woman who couldn't return a phone call while I was burying my husband now wanted me to believe she was doing me a kindness, offering up her basement like it was a gift. Hoping I'd cook, help with laundry, support her through meal planning tasks I used to do when she was a child, but now, somehow, were part of her proposal for my future. The message wasn't about care. It was about convenience. A tidy solution that checked the box of being a good daughter while putting me somewhere out of sight but still close enough to be useful. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table. Not one casserole dish had been touched. Not one condolence card opened again. And for the first time since Edward's death, I said the words out loud. "I'm not a burden. I'm not invisible." And I was done pretending otherwise. The next morning, I walked into Edward's study. His scent still lingered in the room, something between old books and aftershave. The sun cast long streaks across the desk we bought at an estate sale when Brian was still in high school. I opened the bottom drawer. The one Edward always said held boring paperwork. Inside, beneath years of tax returns, was a navy blue folder. Thick, heavier than I expected. Inside, bank statements, investment summaries, legal documents. And then, tucked between them, something unexpected. A deed to a house. Not in Ohio, not in any neighboring state. In Spain. Marbella, a coastal town I'd only heard Edward mention once, while flipping through a travel magazine. There were photographs too. A whitewashed villa with blue shutters, a small terrace with a sea view, a garden lined with lemon trees, and in Edward's handwriting on the back of one photo. A place where no one needs anything from us, just peace. 6 months before his heart attack, he must have purchased it. Then I found the envelope, sealed, my name on the front in his familiar, deliberate handwriting. Inside was a letter, dated exactly 30 days after his passing. My dearest Clarissa, if you're reading this, then the silence I tried to spare you from has arrived. I know our children. I love them, but I know them. And I suspect they're already circling like vultures, convinced they know what's best for you. They don't. You are not fragile. You are not to be managed. Everything we saved, everything we built, it's yours. Not to protect, not to defend, to live. Go to the house. See the world we dreamed of. Choose yourself. And when you sit on that terrace with the sea in front of you, know that I always believed in your strength. Love. Edward. I read it 3 times, and when I looked up from the page, I knew exactly what I had to do. 2 days later, I sat across from Connie West, Edward's longtime estate attorney. Her office smelled of leather and old paper. She wore no perfume, just quiet confidence and a silver streak in her hair that reminded me strength doesn't always raise its voice. Miss Morgan, she said, unfolding the documents between us, your husband was meticulous. He left nothing to chance. I nodded, still holding Edward's letter in my purse-like armor. He created a revocable trust in your name, she continued. All assets, this home, the investment accounts, the Spanish property, are yours alone. Your children were never named as beneficiaries, only the life insurance policy goes to them. I exhaled slowly, so he had known, he had seen what I refused to admit. Connie slid a second envelope across the desk. He also opened a separate account last year, deposited a portion of his pension each month. He called it your Independence Fund. There's $50,000 in it. My throat tightened. He said it was for when Clarissa finally lives for herself. I didn't speak. Couldn't. And the property in Spain? I asked quietly. Fully paid off. You have legal ownership. Russell even hired a local property manager to maintain it. The house is in excellent condition. You can move in tomorrow if you'd like. Move in. That simple phrase stirred something deep in me. Because for the first time in years, someone had spoken about my future without managing it, without bending it into a favor or a sacrifice. It wasn't about what I could give. It was about where I could go. Connie leaned forward, her voice gentler now. Do you want me to draw up the documents to reaffirm your ownership? I met her gaze without hesitation. Yes, I said. It's time. The moving truck arrived at 7 a.m., sharp just as Brian's car pulled into my driveway. I watched from the upstairs window as he stepped out, still dressed in the yellow business suit his wife Lisa picked out for serious meetings. He clutched a manila folder, thick with what I assumed were sale contracts and closing disclosures. He hadn't even knocked when the movers began loading boxes. I met him at the door wearing the red dress Edward had always loved. My hair was freshly styled. No tears, no apologies. Mom, he snapped, what is going on? Good morning, Brian, I said calmly. I'm having some things moved. He brushed past me without waiting for an invitation, scanning the hallway. His eyes landed on the labeled boxes stacked by the stairs. These are mine, he said, pointing. My childhood things. Why are you packing them? Because I thought you'd want them, I said. Memories are precious, and I won't be needing them where I'm going. His brows furrowed. You're not serious. You haven't even signed the sale documents yet. Gregory's client is expecting an answer by noon. I didn't flinch. Brian, where exactly did you tell Gregory the money from this sale would go? What do you mean? I mean, did you and Daniel already divide it? After subtracting imaginary mortgage payments and imaginary maintenance costs? He didn't answer. I didn't wait. You assumed I was struggling. But did it ever occur to you to ask what your father's pension actually provides me each month? or how we managed our investments, or whether I wanted to stay in this house in the life I built. Mom, we were trying to help. No, Brian, you were trying to manage me like a spreadsheet, like a liability. He tried again. Look, I admit we moved too fast. But you don't have to move into Danielle's basement. We'll help you find a nice apartment, something manageable. I looked him straight in the eye. More manageable for whom? Before he could answer, my phone rang. Danielle. I hit speaker. Mom, what is this insanity? There's a moving truck at my house, and men trying to deliver that old piano I haven't touched in years. The one you begged for when you were 8. I said, my voice steady. I thought you'd want it. You said you wanted to keep the memories. I don't want the piano, she snapped. And Brian said you're not going through with the house sale? That's correct. Silence. But you can't afford. I can afford more than you ever gave me credit for. Another pause. Her voice cracked. Mom, what's happening? I'm leaving, but not for your basement. And then, calmly, quietly, I added, I'm leaving because I finally remembered who I was before I became a convenience. 12 hours later, I was on a flight to Madrid. I sat by the window, Edward's favorite spot, and watched the Atlantic shimmer beneath us like a promise waiting to be kept. I didn't sleep. I didn't read. I just sat still for the first time in weeks, letting silence wrap around me like a second skin. At customs, the officer asked, purpose of visit? I smiled, starting over. Outside, a woman held a sign with my name, Pilar Rodriguez, the caretaker Edward had arranged years ago. She greeted me like an old friend, her hug warm and grounding. Your husband, she said, was proud of this house. He said, my Clarissa will make it come alive. As we drove through Marbella's winding streets, I took in the lemon trees, the blue sky, the distant sea. Every corner felt like a secret Edward had saved just for me. And then, we arrived. Whitewashed walls, blue shutters, bougainvillea climbing over the front gate, a terrace with views of the Mediterranean that made my knees weak. Pilar handed me the brass key. He left it for you, said this house was your reward for a life well lived. Inside, everything was simple, peaceful. Clay-tiled floors, wooden shelves waiting for books, a kitchen with sunlight pouring in through arched windows. It was nothing like the home I had left behind, and everything I didn't know I needed. Pilar showed me where she'd stocked the pantry. Wine, bread, olive oil, cheese. Rest now, she said. Tomorrow, we walk. That night, I stood on the terrace with a glass of wine, watching the last light fade over the sea. The waves below crashed against the rocks in steady rhythm, like a heartbeat reminding me I was still here. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt not empty, but full. Not lonely, but free. I didn't miss my children. I missed the version of myself I had almost forgotten. And I had just found her again. 4 days passed in quiet peace. I didn't check emails. I didn't answer calls. I watered the garden with Pilar, tried my first Spanish lesson, and walked every morning to the local bakery where the owner had already learned my name. Then, just as the sun was setting on the 4th day, my phone buzzed. For the first time since Christmas, Catherine's name appeared on the screen. I hesitated but answered on the 4th ring. Grandma, her voice cracked with emotion. Thank God, I've been trying to reach you. There was urgency, but also something else, shame. I just found out, she continued. Mom told me you'd been sending money for college. All this time, she never said it was from you. Her voice broke. Why didn't you tell me? I leaned against the terrace rail, watching the last bit of golden light disappear behind the hills. Because I didn't need credit, Catherine. I just wanted to help. But you shouldn't have had to do it in silence, she said. I'm so sorry. I let them convince me you were fragile, that I shouldn't call too much, that you were grieving, and space was better. But all this time, I wasn't giving space. I was abandoning you. Tears welled in my eyes, but I kept my voice even. You're here now. That's what matters. Then came the words that caught me off guard. Can I come see you? I froze. Spring breaks in 3 weeks. I was supposed to go to Cancun with friends, but I want to come to Spain. I want to see the house Grandpa chose for you. I want to know you, really know you. Not the version Mom gave me? I let the silence stretch. And then I whispered, yes, come. 3 weeks later, I stood at the arrivals gate in Malaga Airport. And when Catherine walked through the terminal doors, I barely recognized her. Gone was the polished, filtered version I'd seen in holiday photos, the curled hair, the designer tote, the too perfect smile. This was a young woman in worn jeans and a plain white t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun, eyes searching until they landed on me. "Grandma," she called out and then ran. Her hug didn't feel rehearsed or polite. It felt real. Strong, like she'd been waiting years to mean it. "You look amazing," she said, stepping back. "Like radiant. Did you cut your hair?" "Just a trim," I smiled. Pilar insisted. During the drive to Marbella, she pressed her face to the window like a child, pointing at every whitewashed village, every grove of olives, every flash of sea between the hills. "This is where Grandpa wanted to bring you." I nodded. He bought the house in secret, said it was for when no one needed anything from us anymore. When we pulled into the driveway, she went still. The bougainvillea, the lemon trees, the sea behind the terrace. She looked at it all, then at me. "He knew, didn't he?" she said softly. "He knew you'd need this place." That evening we sat on the terrace eating pella Pilar had made to welcome her. The air was warm, the waves below steady. "Tell me about your life here," she said. "I want to know everything." And for the first time in years, someone wasn't asking what I could give. They were asking who I was. And they genuinely wanted to hear the answer. The next morning, we walked the village together buying fresh bread, learning names, laughing over my halting Spanish. Catherine asked about my writing and I told her the truth. I'd started a memoir. Not the novel I once dreamed of, but something more honest. A story about how easy it is to lose yourself when love turns into duty. And how hard but necessary it is to take your life back. Later that week she sat across from me at the beach, toes buried in the sand. "Grandma," she said, "I think I want to stay. Not just for spring break, maybe longer. I don't want to go back to pretending." I looked at her, my granddaughter, my friend, my unexpected mirror, and smiled. "Then stay," I said. "Let's figure it out together." Because family is not built on guilt or inheritance or forced obligation. It's built on presence. On honesty. On love that asks for nothing but gives everything. If you've ever felt erased, replaced, or unappreciated by the very people you once put first, please remember this. It is never too late to choose yourself. Never too late to begin again. And never too late to be seen.